Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for rejoining us for the afternoon slot. So I'm delighted to present Dom, Lisa and Emma from Arup, who are going to be talking for the next half an hour. And as you have heard me say a few times now, please put your questions in the Q&A section. So look on the right-hand side of the chat and you have stage and then Q&A, and upvote those questions that you want me to ask. I'll be joining back in a bit, but for the moment, I'll hand you over to Dom. Over to you, Dom.
Perfect. Thanks, Ali, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining this session. My name is Dom Cowley, and I'm a recruiter here at Arup across our infrastructure and consulting sectors. For this session, we're going to introduce you to Arup. So don't worry if you don't know too much about Arup, because the whole purpose of this session is to give you a bit of an introduction and then talk about the graduate and placement opportunities that we will have available for 2022 and hopefully give you some good hints and tips around the recruitment process, what we're looking for, and ultimately what makes a really, really good candidate. I'm also joined by Emma and Lisa, who are new graduates here at Arup, who will be telling you a little bit more about who they are, what their roles are, and yeah, hopefully again giving you some good hints and tips around the recruitment process. But I'll introduce them both a little bit later on in the presentation. What I want to do also is just have enough time at the end for some questions. So I'm going to try and get through my slides as quickly as possible. But as Ali said, if you could please drop your questions into the Q&A chat, that would be fantastic. And then hopefully at the end, we'll have some time for some questions. So who are Arup? If you don't know about who we are. So I think this slide on the screen that you can see really demonstrates our global presence. So just to start off in terms of who we are, what we do as a business. So we've got the tagline there. We're a global firm of engineers, designers and planners. We also have a massive advisory and consulting team, and we work on lots of projects around the world, lots of infrastructure projects. So things like building buildings, building roads, dams, lots and lots of stuff that you can imagine is built within the built environment. We have a presence on. We have a few famous projects, quite a few famous projects as well. So ones like the Sydney Opera House, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We're working on HS2 at the moment, so that's a really large project for us, and Lloyd's building. But they're just a few of the projects that we've actually supported and given expertise on. So just to highlight our global nature and the scale of our operations. So last year, our revenue across the globe was $1.8 billion. We have 16,000 strong workforce in 96 offices across 35 countries. So really demonstrating how many people are involved in Arup projects. And currently we have more than 14,000 live projects across 146 different countries. So really, you know, it's very unlikely that there will be a country where there's not an Arup project taking place. So just to highlight the key markets in which we operate. So we operate in 4 key markets. We operate across cities, energy, so lots of work going on around sustainable energy sources, renewable energy, so loads of really exciting stuff. We also work across transport, so I just mentioned HS2 is one of our larger projects here in the UK, but we are involved in lots of infrastructure related projects around transport, and then also water, so things like reservoirs, dams, lots of water related infrastructure. So those are really our key sort of markets, the key pillars in which we operate as a business. So just to give you a bit of background around our history, how we were formed, who were we formed by. You may, if you've done your research around Arup, know of a really famous person in our organisation, our founder, who's called Ove Arup. And Ove Arup founded our business in 1946. His philosophy that he worked on was called total design. And really for him, that was the creative partnership between architecture and engineers. It's bringing together those two really, really key skills in order to have a successful outcome and create successful projects. We have a really famous key speech here at Arup that Ove Arup delivered in 1970. So think about it, over 50 years ago, where he set out what our values should be and how we should operate as a business. 50 years on, more than 50 years on, these values are still very, very relevant to our business today. I'll tell you a little bit more about our core values in the next slide, but I think it really shows how forward thinking and how future thinking as well Ove Arup was when he was founding the company. So that's a little bit about Ove Arup. And as part of that key speech, he said about some core values that we do abide by as a business, as I mentioned today. So the first one, ensuring that the Arup name is always associated with quality for us. Whatever project we're working on, whatever projects we're delivering, they have to be the highest quality and the highest standard. Whatever projects we're bidding for, we make sure that only we are bidding for the projects where we feel like we can deliver the ultimate expertise and the ultimate value. We won't take on projects that we don't feel like we can deliver. It's very important to us that anything we deliver as a business is of the highest quality and the highest standards. Second one, acting honestly and fairly in dealings with our staff and others. So if you do your research around Arup, you might apply for a job or come to one of our evening events. You will get to know actually the structure within Arup in terms of the hierarchy of the business is relatively flat compared to other businesses, and this is really, really key for us. There is a really, really friendly atmosphere here at Arup. Everyone is very, very helpful and very willing to help. We want to make sure that all of our employees act honestly, have integrity, and are fair with other people. And then finally, we want to enhance prosperity for all of our staff. So ensuring that staff are happy, ensuring that staff have a development sort of journey in the future. They're not just going to be stuck or siphoned into one role, really making sure that they have development, they have freedom to actually progress their careers is massively important, and that they are turning up to work every single day happy and wanting to work for Arup. So just to quickly highlight how our business is owned. So our business is actually not a public limited company, so it is not floated on the stock exchange. We are a private business, and that's really important for us in terms of the decisions that we do make as a business. We want to make sure that we are driving our future, we're driving our own decisions, and we're not influenced by outside sources too much. So currently, we are a privately owned business. Fantastic. So I think I mentioned a little bit earlier around Ove Arup and his philosophy around total design. So I just wanted to quickly highlight one of those projects that I think really delivers that in all of its glory, which is the Sydney Opera House. And as I mentioned, one of Arup's really famous projects. So initially, when the Sydney Opera House was built between 1957 and 1963, Arup used some really state-of-the-art for the time computers in engineering to radicalize the structural design. So that was actually, building the Sydney Opera House from its foundations. And then in 2017, we used BIM, which is Building Information Modeling, to manage the building refurbishment. So it really does show we want to have a presence across every stage of a building's life cycle or a piece of infrastructure's life cycle, and ensuring that we are constantly innovating, constantly making sure that any project we're working on, it's not just left, that it is being developed, and again, to highlight that it's the highest quality that it can be. So this next slide just highlights really, I guess, the the array of roles that you can do within Arup. A really good example, which is the London Olympic 2012 Park. You can see there's a whole host of different disciplines, of different roles that we had in terms of supporting the creation and the development of the park. So planning, sustainability, bid consultancy, bridges, landscape, geotechnics, to actually supporting the creation of some of the different venues and arenas. I think it just really nicely highlights how many different roles you can do within Arup, how many different projects there are within a larger project. So I've just spoken to you a little bit more about who we are as a business, and I guess ultimately what our main business model is. I just wanted to highlight the Arup Cause Fund, which I guess is our sustainability pillar. And for us, it's really important, no matter where we are across the globe, no matter what projects we're working on and delivering, it's important for us that we're leaving no community in not a good place. We want to make sure that any community that we engage with, that we touch base with, we want to make sure that those communities benefit from our presence ultimately, and we leave them in a better place than they actually were. And obviously, this is especially relevant in third world countries in which we actually have projects in. That's essentially how we shape the better world. So we offer advice as well. So it's not just physical support that we offer. We've offered disaster relief advice for the last 30 years. And it's really helped to, as I said, benefit local communities, so that if anything happens again, if there's any disasters that happen, then they are well equipped and well prepared to deal with those challenges should they face them again. And I think no better example where this was epitomised was during Hurricane Sandy in 2012. We provided solutions to some of the flood-prone areas to ensure that if it did happen again, then New York would definitely be better prepared. So this is essentially where the Arup sort of Cause Fund came to life as a project. So I think, if you're looking to apply for Arup, do some research around, some of the work we've been doing around the Arup Cause Fund, because I think that's really, really good outside of the box thinking that you can apply into your applications as well. So I'm conscious of time. I'm going to go through these fairly quickly because I want to make sure that Emma and Lisa have an opportunity to talk about themselves. But I just wanted to highlight our recruitment process. So what you can see at the moment is our recruitment process for our graduate roles, and these graduate roles have gone live. We are open for applications in the UK. We have multiple locations across the UK, and all of this information is on our website. So once I've stopped sharing my screen, I'll drop a link to our website, and you will see there are a lot of different roles on offer. It's about making sure that you're comfortable with the role that you want to go for, and that you meet the requirements set on the job description. So just to quickly highlight our application process for our grad scheme, you will need to complete an online application form, which will ask you if you have the relevant grades, the relevant experience, why you want to work for Arup, and specifically why you want to do that job role. If you're successful at that stage, you'll then move on to an online situational judgment test, which is assessing your ability to react to certain situations and testing how you would respond to dealing with challenges. If you're successful, then you'd move on to our hiring manager review, where our hiring managers would look through your application. If you're successful at that stage, then you'll be invited to an assessment centre, which will likely take place in either December or January of 2022 for a September 2022 start. So that is when all of our grad roles will be going live, September 2022. We don't have an exact date confirmed yet, but you will know in due course. So just a few things to consider before you apply. Really important to do your research around Arup. As I said, do your research around some of the projects that we've completed, but also some things that you may not have considered, like our Arup cause fund and other initiatives that we do run as a business. I think also really important that you can understand more about some of our disciplines and some of our teams. That will really, really help. Understand your role, so make sure that the role you're looking for is going to be the right one for you. We only allow you to apply for one role at a time here at Arup, so it's really important that you do spend the time making your application as good as it can be. Are there growth opportunities in that role? Do you want growth opportunities? Is that something that you want in your career? Do you meet the criteria? So do you possess the right knowledge, the right grades as well? Would you enjoy the role? Ultimately, we want you to be happy in your role. So really important that you make the right decision. Check the location. Some of the roles are very specific and they will have specific locations outlined. Some of the roles could have multiple locations where you can put your first and your second preference of location. It's very, very different from role to role. And are you aligned with our values? Are you aligned with our mission? Do you ultimately want to come on the mission with us? Okay, I'll whiz through these last ones. So just some tips around the online application. Avoid mistakes. Please read the question really carefully. And I said this in our booth a little bit earlier on. Really important that you are answering the question directly. Be honest as well. And I think these are quite obvious things, but just need to be highlighted sometimes. Don't lie on your application form. Sell yourself. I know it's quite hard, as Brits to really shout about ourselves, but please do make sure to do that. Double check your application. If you can bounce it off someone else, then that's fantastic. And take your time as well. Most of our grad roles will be closing around the end of October, early November, so you still have time. But what I would say is if you do have time to submit an application, please do so as soon as possible. And final slide from me before I hand over to Emma and Lisa, just wanted to give you a bit of a steer around what our recruitment timeline looks like. So I think I've mentioned some of these dates already. We have opened for our applications already. So all of our graduate roles are live on our website. In October, so this month, we will be doing the manager reviews where managers will look through your application. We will then, as I mentioned, from December, have our virtual assessment centres. So these are virtual. So that's something just to expect. You won't be required to actually go to an office and attend a direct assessment centre. Once you've completed that assessment centre, hopefully you will receive an offer from us, and you should get that offer from December. We will then start our grad programmes in September. We'll start our placement programmes in July. As I mentioned, all of the roles are on our website, so please do have a look at our website. I'll try and pop the link into the chat when I can. Close dates can be different from role to role, so just keep an eye on the closing dates on the role itself. And we're yet to have an exact date confirmed for our graduate start dates, but once you do apply, that information will become a lot clearer. Perfect. So I'm expecting lots of questions. I can't see, but what I want to do is hand over to Lisa and Emma, who are going to talk about their experiences. So should we let's start with Lisa, if you're happy to come off mute.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So my name is Lisa, and I've recently joined the Manchester team. I did my master in 3D design in Scotland, in Glasgow. And basically, this is also like the professional area that I've joined, Arup. My team is 3D visualization team. And we are mostly preparing either 3D interactive models for clients or architectural visualizations or any sort of things like that. Our last projects are the railway York, Leeds, Manchester, in which we are doing the interactive 3D model. And we also have a very different range of smaller projects, but everything is related to 3D design and visualization in architecture mostly. So I started only 3 weeks ago, So I would say that the start in Arup is very smooth. So you have a lot of induction calls, you have a lot of explanations on the structure and everything. But I'm already also engaging in the tasks as well, like my professional areas tasks. But it's also very light and like just so you're not stressful and stuff. So usually it's just basic 3D modeling and maybe optimizing models or doing some very pleasant Photoshop editing and all this sort of stuff. I joined a very small team because in Manchester we are only 4 in visualization team. That's why I think I'm already actually working because the team is pretty busy. So I have like a lot of tasks. And I guess it's a little bit different across different departments. But anyways, in the ARAP, people make sure that your start is very smooth and not stressful. So I would say that's really good for new graduates to be settled with the role before actually dive into the process.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
And Emma?
Yep, sure. So I'll introduce myself. So I did a master's in civil engineering, an integrated MEng course at Swansea University. But I did a placement year between 2nd and 3rd year. That placement was with Arup in Cardiff in the highways department. I won't lie to you, I had no idea what that actually entailed when I started, because I didn't know what department I wanted to go into. And I actually really enjoyed it. Had lots of experience with like some smaller projects that were just like local scale, like sort of like junction design, things like that. But then I also got the chance to work on like multi-million, multi-billion projects like HS2 or like A30 and M4, which are quite big highways in the UK, if anybody knows. And then also whilst on that placement in the highways team, I got a chance to explore a bit, see what the bridges team did. So I got a lot of site experience with the bridges team, which I really enjoyed, which was like just really valuable in terms of like it's quite rare that sometimes that you get so much experience as a sort of young person that's not quite finished their degree. So then I decided I quite like the bridges team. So I am now, as a graduate, come back to Arup, and I'm now in the bridges team in the Bristol office. I've been here a month, so I guess in terms of like telling you what I do day to day, it's quite new to me still, but everything feels really relaxed, even though I don't really know what I'm doing. But so far I've done lots of drawing work, like sort of modeling online. Lots of structural analysis stuff is like heading my way apparently, but we'll find out about that. But I think the key thing about Arup for me is that everything is so based on people, so it doesn't actually matter whether you. So I went for bridges department for my graduate role, even though I've never worked in industry as doing like many structural things. But I knew that's something I was interested in, so I sort of bit the bullet and went for it. And so I think my one takeaway is probably if you think you're going to enjoy something, but you're scared that you haven't got experience in that yet, I think go for it, because at the end of the day, everyone here is so welcoming and friendly that they'll help you, and they'll help you like with career progress if you're going for like chartership like I am with ICE. I think everything's like really supportive, and like sort of you feel fully part of the family pretty quick. Yeah, that's my experience so far, I think. And non-work wise in Arup, there's lots of opportunities to join like sports clubs. Like there was not a climbing club in Arup in Bristol office, so I've sort of impromptu sort of made one in the first few weeks of being here. So we've had a few climbing socials. There's like a big football scene, like where it's just like casual leagues in most Bristol, like most Arup offices. So that's quite fun. And lots of like charitable things like Engineering Without Borders and eFord and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot to do at Arup and a lot of fun things. Yeah, I think that's
amazing. Thank you. I'm not sure if we have Ali back to have a look at some questions potentially.
I think I can see the questions.
You can see the questions.
and I've just joined as well. So yeah, happy to ask the questions to you all. Thank you so much to all the questions coming through. We've had some really good ones, and whilst I've been listening to you, I've also kept an eye on those as well. It seems like we've got some that are recruitment related, so maybe ask them to yourself, Dom, and then a bit about the company and the culture. So maybe Lisa and Emma, I'll go to you. So the one that's been the most up-liked from Francesca, so thank you very much, Francesca. So she asks the sorts of candidates who can apply. So can people apply who've got a master's? But I guess also what industry is, or what backgrounds, or what are people studying in order to apply?
Yeah, really, really good question. Thanks for the question. This is also a question we had in our booth earlier this morning. We don't have a standard, set grades or course that we look for. It's very much dependent on the role itself that you are looking at. And if you go onto our website, there's about 10 pages of different roles. So you do have lots of choice when you're looking for the different opportunities. We have teams, so especially our engineering teams, who will look for specific subjects that you should have studied. Sometimes they will ask that you have both a bachelor's and a master's degree. I think on the whole, as a general rule though, for most of our opportunities, we will ask for a bachelor's degree. If you have a master's degree, then that's fantastic. But as a sort of entry requirement, it would be a bachelor's degree for most of our programs. But as I said, some of our teams, some of our disciplines will ask for more specific subjects and grades, and they might ask for a master's degree.
Nice, thanks, Dom. And it sounds like that's covered quite a few of the other questions that are coming in as well. So people asking about masters, about sponsorship and particular courses that are on. So I would suggest, maybe just in the interest of time, if there's any specific questions from any of you, please join the Arup team in the booth afterwards. We've had a great question as well about locations and how can you find out which locations are recruiting for certain areas. So Dom, got any insight on that?
Yeah, so we have a vacancy page for all of our graduate opportunities. What you will see right at the top of that vacancy page is a number of checkboxes, and it will have all of our locations listed there. So whatever location or locations you want to see, you just tick those boxes, and then your results will be filtered to those locations. As I said, loads of roles, so lots of different locations across not only England. We have roles in Scotland, roles in Wales, and roles in Northern Ireland as well.
Thanks, Dom. And then we've had an anonymous question. Thank you very much for it. So this is for yourself, Emma. Is it easy to move between teams if we aren't sure where we want to end up?
That's an interesting question. So I think it was quite, it's kind of more rare that you get a chance to do that. So when the way that sort of like basically the teams work in Cardiff was that highways and bridges were sort of aligned. So they sort of share like a similar cost centre, so all the jobs get billed to the same place. So you do get the chance to, but also it depends on like, say like how busy your team is, because if they've got lots of project work lined up, they might not be able to release you to be able to try other things. It's all dependent, like a lot of opportunities are all dependent on like what projects we've got coming in, and what we're currently working on, what deadlines we've got, and like what sort of project teams are sort of made up, because a lot of project teams end up being like multiple disciplines anyway, so you get to try out and like work with other teams anyway. So yeah, I'd say it all depends on like which sort of team you want to work with, and whether they're in the same office, and whether like both teams have like work for you to do and your team actually has enough capacity to be able to release you. Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. It just sort of like is very like situational, I'd say.
Thank you very much. I'm just conscious of time. Maybe quite question for time for one last question. I think it's a really good one. So Lisa, maybe it's coming your way. It's what are the key cultural aspects that make an employee love the company? So in a nutshell, Lisa. So Lisa, the question was, are there any cultural aspects that make an employee love Arup?
Well, I think the main one for just employees, especially for the new grads, is how supportive the company is. So it's like a lot of people, not only your team is helping you, but it's also like you can see people everywhere, which is like asking you a question like, hi, we've heard that you are new, like, how are you and stuff like that. So like, I would say that company has a very humanistic approach, let's say, to people. So you really feel it's easier to settle with a role. I mean, maybe it's not the most important thing, but it's very important when you're a new grad and you try to start your working path, let's say. It's something that you immediately notice because it's very personal and you always feel supported, let's say. So I would say it makes it a really great experience because it's relieve the stress of being completely new in a completely new environment. So I think this is something that like would be important for new people or students interested in placements or in graduate positions.
Yeah, it sounds great. I'm glad we had time for that one last question. That's a really nice answer as well. So thank you to all three of you for your time and the presentation. Really appreciate that. And massive thank you to all the students who asked questions. Please join the team in the employer booth for now if you've got any more specific questions, because we obviously didn't have time to go through them all. Back on the main stage, we'll be joined by Computer Centre in just less than 15 minutes. But for now, thank you very much to all of you. Really appreciate your time and look forward to catching up with all the students again in about 15 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.